All right. Well, hey everybody, welcome to another Artist During Games interview. And today, Elijah and I are sitting down with some of the team at Team Cherry behind Hollow Knight. We are with Ari Gibson and William Pellin. Thank you guys for joining us.
This is Ari.
Yeah, thanks guys. This is William as well.
And we might be on a little bit of a delay if you're getting a little bit of crossover.
Now, before we get into all the awesome stuff that everyone's here for about the game, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and Team Cherry?
We sure can. So we're a team of 3 people. The other member is Rowan Fraser, who's another artist. He's not with us today, but we're in Adelaide, Australia, South Australia, I should say, which is right down the bottom. And we sort of formed around. We formed around game jams initially, and then we've. This is our first major game, which is Hollow Knight, which is sort of, I suppose, a culmination of what we were working towards in those game jams. As more, I suppose, it's more of a fully featured, full content kind of experience. Yeah, and I'm probably the primary artist that's been involved so far in the Hollow Knight stuff that you would see online. So I've been doing the animation and the environments and cutscenes and whatnot. And then William has been doing the coding.
Mainly looking up the coding. We've also both been working on the design of the game as well.
That's right. And then William himself is also an animator. So he's implementing a lot of things, a lot of animated stuff as well as he goes, which probably takes a lot off my shoulders, and are also, I think, is part of why we have a really good feel and a really good timing in the game design itself, because he obviously really understands those qualities and making it feel really, really immediate and appealing.
Okay.
I think, yeah. How's that?
Yeah, so you guys are fully in sync.
That is one hell of an intro. Most people are just like, "Hi, I'm so and so," and yeah. Y'all have your whole resumes ready to go.
This is the best intro we've gotten.
There was one person I interviewed, and they literally just introduced their name, and they said they were working on the game, and I was waiting for them to speak, but they wouldn't. I was like, okay, well, I was giving you an opportunity to plug yourself, but anyways.
Man, we envy that kind of succinctness.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, when people are talking about games, some people like to get all the nitty-gritty details and all the words, I guess. My brain's...
Oh, you're going to be drowning in the word.
Yeah.
Now,
the words.
So, since you brought it up, can you tell us, Hollow Knight is your first game, it's on Kickstarter. How exactly did Hollow Knight come to be? How did it come to exist?
What inspired it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the very first game jam we worked on, we made a little game called Hungry Knight. It had sort of the same character, and in that game he was really hungry. He sort of went around stealing cherries from other insects and beating them up. Because the theme of that game jam was 10 seconds. He had to eat every 10 seconds or he'd die. So the name made sense. And then after that game jam, we sort of worked on a few other things, but Ari in particular really, really liked the character we'd come up with, and kept on working on concepts for him and started to build him like a really strange underground insecty world. And then when we sort of talked about doing a larger project, we wanted to get him involved in it. So yeah, the whole idea was based around that, building him like a little 2D adventure underground. And then when we realised he didn't really eat anymore, we decided to call him Hollow Knight instead.
Yeah, well, I suppose he was still a Hollow Knight originally anyway, because he needed to eat.
True.
Always starving. So he has forever been the Hollow Knight. But it started like that. We should note that the original game that he existed in was actually quite a different style. It was a top-down thing. And it was sort of almost a single-screen experience. The tone and everything in the world that's been built around him since, I would think, is probably a little bit more refined. So maybe his world is a bit more consistent with him now. There's also probably in that time we've built up a narrative around who he is, though we're not inclined to reveal too much.
Obviously, you got to keep some secrets.
There's a foundation now, I suppose, that we can.
We know he's no longer hungry.
Well, he may still be hungry. We're not. Who knows? He's sort of enigmatic, right? So,
Oh my goodness.
Well, if he's hollow, though, you could have him trying to eat the cherries. I don't know.
You'll have to have some sort of slight callback to Cherry to his inception somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Now, something that you mentioned is Hollow Knight. It's based in this world, very insect. Lots of insects, lots of bugs, very terrestrial, very interesting. Also, it's different from what we normally see. How did the team come up with this concept, and like what made it? What was it about the concept of insects that y'all said, you know what, hey, we like bugs. Let's make a game where you explore a world of bugs and creepy crawlies and stuff.
Well, I don't actually think we don't have a particular preference towards bugs. It's just it may have come about as a result of us working in because our history was game jams. We sort of had to develop characters and designs that could be produced very quickly. So you could build up enemies and you could build up spaces efficiently across, say, 72 hours or 48 hours. And surprisingly enough, bugs are the types of creatures that are easily sort of created in that time. So that sounds a little bit dispassionate, I suppose. But that really is the inception of it. And then that's not to say that we don't actually love the characters that come out of it. I mean, personally, I really think that the simplicity of the characters is probably one of the strongest elements of the visual style because they're so iconic, because there's so few elements to each one.
A lot of them
really
seem
distinct
very
visual language to them as well.
Yeah, that's true, and they have those amazing silhouettes that are really striking. We're not sort of sticking hard and fast to known insects. It's kind of just there's a general insect quality, and it's quite referential without being too slavish to reality.
Hopefully no bug scientists sort of play the game and get really annoyed about nothing really makes sense biologically.
That could definitely happen.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of effort going into this. So how much time does it take to put in for a particular animation? And like when you're doing a boss character, do you divide it into sections or you do just animate them as a whole?
That's a good question. I think it can be either. It just depends on. You're right that the bosses themselves are a more involved process, and it's probably a bit more of a back and forth between, say, myself and William in terms of how we want it to play. A discussion about how we want it to play and what kind of moves it has, and then that goes into and then that gets animated, or elements of it can be implemented in a kind of a rough way in the engine, and then I can animate, and then I can clean up the animation or add animation as necessary. So as we mentioned previously, I think because William has this, or maybe it's not, but partially probably because he has this animation background, he can really implement these great timings with the characters, with the boss, and he can do that in a kind of a rough way very quickly, and it's very easy for me to go back in and just go over the top and refine that a bit. But in terms of the time it takes, the bosses are the most difficult, and they probably take at least probably 2 or 3 days just to produce the animation for each one. Some of the lesser enemies are completely opposite to that. They can be. I shouldn't admit this, but some of them can be sort of 40 minutes to do all of their animation. So a Goomba kind of character, your equivalent simple little crawling bug probably takes 20 minutes to produce its death, walk, turn, attack, that kind of sequence. So yeah, it just depends on the complexity of the characters.
And do you do any of it by hand, or is it all done in the engine with software?
No, it is all done. Well, it's all. It starts in pencil, so it starts in a sketchbook. So all of the ideas are in our sketchbooks here, including the world elements that we sort of sketch out before we ever get into the digital space. Then the animation is done using Wacom tablets, so pen tablets, in Photoshop.
Yeah, the only stuff we really animate in Engine is sort of particle effect things, like bits of rubble bouncing around and that sort of stuff, smoke and dust getting kicked up.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Now, something that Elijah and we were talking about is everything. It's done in 2D. You're doing all this animation. Why did you choose to go with that style?
I think we're both 2D animators, so I think that would be the main reason. We're 2D animators because we probably enjoy or like 2D animation as well. So it's not like we came to 2D animation before we came to this game, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
And then I think, I don't know, I suppose the other element is just that 3D probably is inherently a lot more complex, requires a much larger team, and requires a lot more
Coding
effort
knowledge?
to implement. Well, a little bit more, yeah, but it's not. It's more just the ability to create the world and create the game and tell the story efficiently and simply. So because we're on this flat plane and because our assets are all in 2D. Like I was saying, I can produce the art for an enemy, for a simple enemy, in 40 minutes. Then William can probably code that enemy in another 40 minutes, and suddenly you're interacting with that enemy in game. And that's really something that, and we're talking in a finished form basically. So, and that's something that 2D and this sort of the simple platform style that we're working with really allows us.
Okay.
Very nice.
Now, the art style, this aesthetic you're going for, it's very striking. It's very dark. You've got a lot of this kind of muted
Almost
colors and grayscale.
Dokuro, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Dokuro, and also it brings to mind The Nightmare Before Christmas, almost. This, the early Tim Burton kind of grayscale-ish. What are some of the do y'all have any direct inspirations that you were thinking of when creating this? Was there something that specifically you wanted to try to do? I mean, how did you decide on this?
I wish we could say it was some sort of plan based on very specific influences. Definitely, we can recognise that there probably is some of that Tim Burton thing, which is just because we've got an that atmosphere is quite synonymous with him, which is that dark but slightly cute, perhaps like
slightly lighthearted at the same time.
Yeah, like a
bit of levity to it.
Yeah, a little bit of levity within all that darkness, and then there's also this sort of Victorian imagery of lamp lights and benches, wrought iron benches, and things like that. And I think that that's something that people will often associate with Tim Burton as well. That's not to say other people don't do it, but other than that, I'm not sure. I don't think we were really sitting down and probably like you've heard, where it was something that grew quite naturally without initially a great plan laid in place. Though we're very pleased with where it's ended up, and as a result, we can't reference touchstones artistically. I think what we can reference is gameplay touchstones or game design, because we are obviously working off established genres, or a well-established genre, which is this sort of often called Metroidvania, but that exploratory open world side-scrolling with item gating genre, and then we have some specific game touchstones within that we're looking at as the basis for our for this game. I think we've mentioned them in some around the place, including on the Kickstarter, but I think they were the main ones are Zelda 2, which we really love. Another one called Farzanadu, which is we also really love. And then the last one we say is Metroid, though we talk about Metroid just in terms, probably more in terms of the mechanics.
Right. Now, there have been a lot of Metroidvanias either released lately or they're coming out on the horizon. There's been a resurgence almost of them after kind of have a lull, and Nintendo has yet to release another Metroid title. So what is it exactly that you feel is appealing about the Metroidvania, this sort of subgenre? Like, why is it that players keep coming back to this?
What do you want to answer that?
Okay. So, I guess it's just the sense of adventure and exploration you get, being able to sort of poke around through a world, learn its layout, sort of take it at your own pace, and it's a really different feel, like a completely different feel, even though it's sort of similar to stuff like Mario, where it's A to B, level by level. Just the process of sort of descending into the depths, powering up the character. I guess having to actually pay attention to where you are in the world and keep exploring, that sort of thing.
It also becomes a kind of a seamless narrative where, unlike a Mario, you're not pulled out of the world at the end of a level and reminded that you're playing a game. You really can enter the world and then stay in that world, and that world is completely consistent for the entire time you're playing, which means it really envelops you in a way that perhaps the games that have a traditional level structure don't. Not that they try to necessarily in the same way. Mario is more abstracted and more about, obviously, motion and gameplay anyway. But yeah, in terms of like them being more Metroidvanias coming out, I think that other people share that desire that we have to play those sort of games, and the love for those sort of games. And I think we think at least that you're right. There are a lot on the horizon, but right now there aren't a lot. And the 6 or 7 examples of the genre that have existed for the last decade, we still continue to play over and over again because there aren't any more for us. So we're
Right.
constantly going back to our La Milanas and our cave stories, and our Symphony of the Nights, and all the GBA Castlevanias, and thinking, wow, these are amazing, but we still want more of them. We still want to have new experiences in that genre. So I think absolutely there's a space for more of them. And you're right that some of the ones on the horizon look really promising as well. There's one called, I think it might be called Eve. Oh, I hope I'm remembering that right. There's a wonderful one that looks like a bit like Cave Story with robots. And there's another one called Ghostsong that's actually a friend of ours is making it, and that's looking like a really brilliant sort of spiritual successor to Metroid. So Nintendo, you're right, are not have been refusing to make the actual 2D Metroid, though there are hints that perhaps they're thinking about it. Doesn't matter because Matt White is making Ghostsong, and that looks awesome. So I think
you mentioned you're friends with him, actually?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've actually been in contact with him, and I've actually had my hands-on time with it for a little bit. I'm trying to line up an interview with him, and it's very, very different in a good way.
Cool. Yeah. He definitely applies what he seems to understand very, very well. I think is to not handhold the player.
Oh no!
Exactly.
A lot of I don't know. A lot of people sort of have to untrain themselves, I think, from that notion of having to give everyone prompts all the time and kind of, keep them rugged up and safe. And
You can walk in more than just a straight line.
Like they know everything that's going on. Part of the reason, I should say, we connected with him is that we actually developed our prototype through the same engine stencil that he uses for Ghostsong. So
okay.
we related a lot in terms of how we were building the products.
Well, now that you've brought that up, that's interesting because Ghostsong, it's very much the artistic style he's going for is very much in the vein of Super Metroid, very creepy, even darker than Hollow Knight. It's very alien. It's very otherworldly. It's kind of unnerving in a way. And it's interesting that you both created it in the same engine, and it just shows, like, just with a little bit of vision, what can accomplish from the same thing. That's really cool. But also, there's obviously a lot of Metroidvanias. We cover that, and I play a lot. Now, something that strikes me about Hollow Knight from all the ones I've played is you have a very it's very fluid and it's more fast paced, and the combat, it seems, than other ones. And even the more action focused ones like Castlevania, the upcoming Chasm, has a good bit of combat. Hollow Knight seems to be much more fluid, almost I hate to say it, but it almost has like a fighting game fluidity where it's just a very sort of dynamic sense of motion and very fast and fluid movement.
Don't hate to say that. That's quite a compliment.
Yeah, that's something we decided on really, really early on. That the character would have that kind of inertialess, like you've got really, really fine control over the way he moves. So even in the air, as soon as you let go of the stick or the direction, you sort of stop dead in midair, like in Mega Man X or Mega Man Zero or something similar. Your attacks come out really quickly. Even while you're attacking with the sword, you can actually still move around and jump.
You don't spend a lot of time in the game when you're out of control of the character. So there's not a lot of moments where you're, say, stun locked or inhibited from moving for some reason. So you do always end up feeling like you can get out of problems yourself, and you can avoid danger if you're playing very, very well.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things we talked about, where we said we really want you to be able to avoid danger right up until the last minute, so that when you get hit and it's that final hit and you die, that you do know that, man, if I had to hit jump or whatever a split second earlier, I could have dodged it.
Okay. It's kind of like we won't be able to blame the controls. For fail.
Yeah.
You can still try.
If it makes you feel better, go for it.
Well, I watched that video you had posted where you were fighting one of the mini bosses, and I don't remember, was it 6 or 7 times before you finally were able to get to the boss and then kill him?
Too many. Yeah.
Well,
probably part of that is me trying to play and knowing that I'm recording. The whole thing's being recorded as well. I think it puts a slight. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, more than a little pressure.
Well, it's good though to see the honesty though, and saying, hey, we're playing this game. It is still challenging. We're showing you as is. We're not showing you a special demo or any sort. This is the game as it is.
Oh, we have to thank Brandon Sheffield, who's a Gama Sutra writer and also game developer, because he said to us, you really should show more depth in the game, and so we sort of decided to show a little rawer for our second gameplay video.
Yeah, the way the character is balanced is because you're super mobile and pretty powerful, but also really quite low health. So it's whatever the outcome is, whether you sort of win or lose, it's pretty quick paced as well when you've got encounters with enemies.
Is he very much a glass cannon, so to speak?
Well, he starts as a glass cannon, and one thing we've been conscious to balance is that as you go through the game, you don't lose that too much, which is something that we do think happens in Metroid a little, where the start of the game is often quite tense and you don't have a lot of health, but it gets to a point where you have so much health that the combat dynamic changes and it becomes less crisp. It becomes sort of a softer.
Like you're just absorbing hits as you take.
Yeah, and you're almost expected to absorb a lot of hits, and we want to kind of remove that, or we want to stay away from that. We want to make sure that as you're playing, you're constantly each heart or piece of health that you have is really precious, and you don't want to lose any one.
Okay, so you're going to constantly keep the player on edge. You don't want them to feel too comfortable. You want to keep their guard up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it fits with the concept, I suppose, as well, of sort of delving into this deep, strange place that if the player starts feeling too comfortable with all the health that they're cruising around with, it's not consistent with what's going on the screen or with the narrative that we're trying to convey.
How will the player unlock the abilities though? Because you're saying that you can actually get more health. Will it be purely through exploration and finding new gadgets, a la Metroid, or will you take more of, say, an Arkham Asylum approach where you can actually purchase upgrades, sort of like in an RPG?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a mixture of both. I mean, the base design has always been that kind of that Metroid style, where as you progress, you'll hunt out, you'll find sort of mandatory items so that you'll power up and you'll be able to keep exploring. But also there'll be a bunch of sort of optional power ups as well. And then alongside that, you do also get money in the game, and you can use that at certain points in shops to buy new items as well.
Okay. This is it's sounding a lot like the game I mentioned earlier, Chasm, where you find kind of currency and you get a experience like Dark Souls almost. And when you die, you have to go back to the place you died to regain it. But you can use that to buy things in shops, so it's not strictly exploration based. There's extraneous upgrades, so to speak.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds similar. And our game is also in a chasm of sorts.
A chasm filled with bugs.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know what's in the other chasm. Has that one got bugs?
It has some bugs, but mostly it's been goblins from what I've seen.
Okay, good. So they're not stealing all of our ideas.
It's also more of a pixel art.
Oh, okay, cool. No, it's great. I mean, look, we always want to experience more games in this genre, like I said. So, we'll definitely check it out.
Now, besides Hollow Knight's very striking art style and the fast and fluid gameplay, what else is it about it that you think really sets it apart from all these Metroidvanias that are be coming out? That really makes it unique. Not that those aren't enough, but because when you look at the screens, you go, "Wow, this game looks wow," and then you see it in action, it's like, "Oh my gosh, it looks even better." But what is it in your minds that you think really helps it to stand apart and make it more unique than just those?
I guess it's hard because that's sort of the core of it. Like you've got the art style, which is obviously sort of we've really strived to create this sort of unique world for you to explore. And then sort of I guess the way it sort of feels and controls to play was another sort of thing that we really try to focus on differentiating from other games, like you said. And it's interesting, we never really thought about it, but it looks a bit like a fighting game, whereas a lot of Metroidvanias, and like Ari says, are sort of based on you sort of becoming really powerful and then absorbing a lot of damage, and being, you've got like that really sort of sharp progression upwards. Whereas we really want to kind of, I guess, keep the pressure on you during the game. Also, like the whole time, keep you focused on, I guess, playing reflexively and fluidly and keeping that play style up the whole time.
Yeah, I think there's quite a maybe this is just our perception, but there's a different balance in our game, perhaps to other games, to the other games in the genre. So like we were saying, the combat is more towards a fighting game than say a Metroid, and then you have this extra agility and this responsiveness, but you still have the exploratory aspects. And then there probably is another end to the genre, which is sort of seen in games like Dust. I don't know if you guys have seen Dust, an Elysian Tale by
Yes.
Dean Dodgerel, he's a really great 2D animator as well. And he the difference there is he's really heavily focused on the combat, and his combat is probably even more like a fighting game, where it's it's a series of combos and it's chaining attacks and all those kind of things. So we're actually trying to sit somewhere between that. We think obviously both ends are excellent and produce really excellent products that we love. But I think we're trying to sit somewhere in the middle and find a new space and take a little bit of both of them. In terms of other unique features, you can jump into the heads of NPCs and enter their dreams, which I don't know if other games provide that. At least not in the genre, maybe. But,
one I can think of would be Psychonauts. Man,
oh yeah.
In the 80s, since that one came out.
Yeah, well, that game, it's actually probably a similar example, except that game itself is actually built primarily around getting into the dream spaces of people, of the characters in the camp. I think our implementation is a little bit different, but I suppose it's probably more like another layer to our game, where if you want to push into that dream world more and access all of those dream spaces, then you get all these additional challenges and all these different kind of varied types of gameplay where parameters of the game change.
It also gives us another way to sort of give another layer to the storytelling as well. Because again, that's something else that we're trying to really make distinctive is sort of the world and the lore and the stories that you can sort of seek out and find. A lot of them they really won't be presented to the player. It'll be up to you to kind of seek out the answers to questions.
Yeah, we're trying to allow a situation where the player who is really interested in things like lore and interested in the world that we've created can start digging around and uncovering secrets. And some things will be so secret that we suspect they'll take the community to sort of find the answers. But then
so
we also
10 years from now, we'll be finding out about, there's this side story in the game.
That's exactly what we hope.
It's going to be like the Arkham Asylum, Arkham City Easter eggs where it took years for
exactly. Yeah, exactly like that. But we also do hope that there's another player who is more like the speedrunner or the player who really is just gameplay first, and their interest is like, how efficiently can I complete this game? How quickly can I get through? And their enjoyment is primarily in the combat that we were talking about and that responsiveness and those really stiff challenges that we've got in the dreams and at the end game and in the White Palace, which we've just which is a stretch goal that we've just reached. So there's something for that player as well. Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, cheers.
Speaking though of all these little intricacies and things you're hiding in there, how big is the game world actually intended to be, and will we be able to explore it after the main campaign is done? Because we'll do the main exploration, beat the bosses, but a fair number of Metroidvania games let you go back and try to find some extras. Will we be seeing that here?
We're not. Yeah, well, possibly is the answer.
Yeah, I don't think there's not. So far, we're not really planning to sort of close off any big sections of the world.
No, it's just a question of whether that conclusion allows you to return into the space. It's something that we probably have to keep discussing. In terms of the scale, we're looking at it's already quite large, really, and then there's going to be these additional areas added, and then we have some great backers who are also helping us add additional villages and additional dungeons and bosses and the like, and some of the stories that we've already received from them are really, really cool and really well thought out, and those are going to give players a lot more content as well. If you're talking about scale, world map scale, because it's a shifting target now. It's probably a little bit hard to say exactly, but we're estimating probably a playthrough, like a straight playthrough without completing all the additional content, maybe about 10 hours. So not massive, but something that can become a lot longer if you really want to poke around and achieve all of those secondary objectives and all of those power-ups and the like.
Yeah, fair amount. Especially for a team of 3 guys, you're popping out an amazing amount of stuff. Like I said, you can make a new enemy every 40 minutes.
Well, we would get tired after a bit if we kept going at that rate.
Oh, come on now. You don't need to sleep, right? You're superhumans.
Well, we're not sleeping that much at the moment, thanks to the Kickstarter.
Now, something that you brought up was the way you let players explore the world and kind of figure out more about the world itself through the lore if they poke around. It reminds me a lot of the Dark Souls philosophy, how From Software delivered the narrative, it was up to the player. Do you think there are any sort of special sort of challenges that come when you're trying to present a narrative more player-focused in that sense, whereas opposed to something like Metal Gear, it's like, here, spend 5 hours watching cutscenes. Don't ask questions, don't interrupt, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's trickier when you're kind of not curating kind of the way the narrative unfolds. Although in other ways, it really kind of frees you up in some really interesting ways to present it, sort of, so you can give people bits of evidence and allow them to discover it out of order. And as long as you sort of, I suppose, a plan is to sort of to have like a narrative behind everything and like a story, but not necessarily reveal it all at once or even every piece of it during the game, but then to sort of, now that we sort of understand the sequence of events that have unfolded, and then to sort of build up characters and events and locations around those that kind of hint at what's happened and sort of can teach the player, especially the more observant ones, sort of what's happened and what's going on.
Yeah, in terms of in reference to something that's those games that are probably more directed cutscene things like a Metal Gear or something. Those are great too, but the genre that we've chosen for this story is one that is very gameplay. Is gameplay first, and the game references that we've chosen are sort of the opposite of a Metal Gear. That if they are Zelda 2 and Farzanadu, well then they're games that you spend most of the time playing, not watching. How's that?
I like the suspenseful moment where we critique you.
Yeah.
Awkward pausing.
But I think you're right. But it's heartening to hear developers when they put the gameplay first, and they want the player to have a good experience first, rather than, because you don't have to sacrifice story for gameplay or anything. You can tie it all together wonderfully. It's just sometimes we see developers kind of struggle, and it's just really awesome, and it's reaffirming to see developers like you, and there's some other ones that have done it lately that want the player to have their fun experience and have great gameplay, but also, you aren't sacrificing creating this world in any way.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people, some of these new designers, these up and coming designers particularly, sort of recognise that gameplay itself is story. That's you creating a story. So it's not, you don't necessarily have to remove control from the player for an extended period to give them a great narrative, gives them a great experience like that. And like you said, the Dark Souls example is particularly good at that.
Now, you're in the last 48 hours of your Kickstarter. I'm sure that's a relief because you've been funded. Like you said, you've already hit one stretch goal. Congratulations, of course, to that. Round of applause.
Hey! Woo! Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the people who've been supporting.
Yeah.
Now, the stretch goal that interests me the most is you have a stretch goal to bring it to the Wii U if you reach another set amount of funding. Why the Wii U over the other consoles? Was there just something about the Wii U, or was it more with getting it on there?
Yes, we've seen this actually with a couple of developers now. Kid Fox with Moon Hunters also had a stretch goal for the Wii U.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we were only originally targeting PC, Mac, Linux, and then just a lot of backers were asking specifically. I mean, people generally would sometimes ask if we were bringing it to consoles or other systems, but Wii U was a really big one that people kept mentioning.
Huh.
So we started looking into it, and then Nintendo actually got into contact with us.
Ooh.
And said,
Very nice.
It wasn't Shigeru Miyamoto, unfortunately.
Oh.
But yeah,
We'll talk to him next.
Yeah, they said, look, we're really interested in having it on the Wii U. So that kind of set that in motion. So those are the people that we've been speaking to sort of first.
Not to say that we've exclusively been speaking with Nintendo. We've also been we've been talking with Sony as well, and they've been quite receptive to the title. But yeah, still the case was that everyone really, William's right. Everyone was really asking for Wii U, and that was an interest. Whether that's something Kickstarter related, that a lot of the people who are on Kickstarter are really. There's a high percentage of Wii U enthusiasts, we're not sure. But it also aligns with our own desires, which is that we grew up playing Nintendo systems primarily, Super Nintendo and Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's kind of, I suppose it's a bit of an extension of that dream of being able to get something on that platform. There is another request which is very popular, which is the Vita, which is the Sony handheld. And that's really something that we'd like to...
Speaking as a Vita player, well, I would love that.
Yeah, well, we think, look, it would be a great fit on that system as well. And we really love the Vita. The controls are all there, everything's not... that screen would make it look fantastic. So, who knows what's going to happen in the future.
Well, maybe Nintendo they want it on the Wii U, so that way they'll think, all right, people can play this awesome game, and they'll back off of us for Metroid for another few months or so.
Well, there is a thematic kind of... We think there's a sort of thematic link with Nintendo, perhaps more than any of the other platform holders, which is that it fits that... It has that dark tone, but it's not so dark as to be considered, say, a mature game. It's probably something that younger, not too young, but younger people can play and really enjoy. So it maybe is right at the right level for that market. In the same way that Shovel Knight previously was very successful through the Wii U, because that was such a great fit in a different sort of genre for them as well.
Yeah, ideally though, eventually, we would love to bring it out on as many consoles as we can.
Every single console
Yeah.
that exists.
Even all the old discontinued ones. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Teleport it to the Omega!
That's right.
So we playing on the Super Nintendo and my Android?
Well, we'll make a demake for the Super Nintendo. How's that?
Oh, okay. I guess you take what you can get.
Oh, demake would be good, right? Do some sort of slightly pixelated. Look nice.
Should be easier work for you, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Redo it all.
And you can actually do like some of these other people that are coming out with new Dreamcast games. You can actually have the cartridges instead of delivering
seriously?
an emulator. Yeah, there are people.
Yeah, I've seen that.
There was actually an RPG that just released. I think it was released for the Sega Genesis. I can't remember the name now, but it was in development originally for it or something. But yeah, they released physical Genesis disc, and another one came out not long ago for the Dreamcast. I mean,
It's not called Pierre Solaris or something like
that's
like
the
that.
one.
Yeah, I've seen that. I saw they up-res the graphics for maybe the Genesis version, but that looked great. I would definitely play that.
Now, the soundtrack. Who is composing it?
We don't actually have a final composer yet. We've actually been speaking to a lot of people and who've been submitting stuff. That's really good. And actually been writing stuff specifically for Hollow Knight
Okay.
to kind of show us, the sort of thing they can produce for us. And we've been going through it all, and it's really we're going to have to wait till after the Kickstarter, and then we're going to have to sit down, go through it all, start speaking to some people.
It's also going to be a pretty tough decision because we've had a handful of people who've just delivered basically, almost spot on. They've kind of hit the tone and the style of Hollow Knight really well. So, yeah, we are going to have to look at that when we've had some sleep.
Put it up to a vote.
Yep.
Something else that you just recently added on your Kickstarter were these Hollow Knight figurines by David Diaz-Patron. I hope I pronounced his name right. How did that come to be? Because I got to say, that figurine looks great.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, no, we were super impressed. He did an incredible job with that. He approached us. Well, he didn't actually. That's all right. He backed us initially, and was a big supporter of the game before he ever produced the figurine. And then he suggested that he could do that partway through the campaign. So, which we of course said, absolutely.
Yeah, he's made figurines for a few other games. He did some stuff for Monument Valley,
Which is a well-known iPad game.
Yeah, and then he just offered. He said he wanted to make it, so we sent him some stuff, some sort of little model sketches and stuff. And
they're great models, and they're all they're painted by hand and assembled by him. Obviously, probably the saddest thing about it is that because he does them himself, he can only make from one mold. He can only make 10 models, of which he keeps one. So he only has the capacity to sell nine models before the mold is basically useless. So it gets destroyed in the process, I suppose. But we would ultimately, in the future, like to work with him on probably not something of that fidelity and that handcrafted, that level of handcrafted sort of perfection. But if there was a way to produce other merchandise like that in higher quantities and high volumes, we'd be really interested.
Are we going to see a Hollow Knight Saturday morning cartoon show next? Is that what you're
Hollow
hinting
Knight
at?
Legos.
Yeah.
I'd be worried that he'd have some kitschy voice.
What's going on, dudes?
Yeah.
It's me, Hollow Knight.
It could talk like Sonic, have a Hollow Knight says moments.
This is exactly what I think will happen. I can already see some producer suggesting it.
Oh man, I'm down already.
And then
Williams in.
Michael Bay produced a live action movie and it'll be full of explosions and there you go. It'll be all CGI. There you go. Come on. Megan Fox will be in it, right?
Yeah, it's probably too true. It's probably terrifying reality.
Well, now on the on your Kickstarter, you have an estimated delivery for June 2015. Obviously, that's going to depend if some more of the stretch goals get hit. But is that still the time frame that you're looking for, kind of summer of next year for release?
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, it is for the PC release, and then slightly after for the Mac release and the Linux release. So we just have to stagger those a little bit so that we don't kill ourselves. But
Please don't.
Yeah, we'll yeah. If depending on how many stretch goals we hit, that may the additional content may push it back a little bit. We have talked about potentially if we get if we get a set of content that is too large, like additional content, then we could consider giving it, offering it as a free DLC sort of set to the backers that then they can download as it's done, which allows us to not massively blow out the deadline. But then again, the other thing is if we hit this Wii U stretch goal, which we really really want to hit, that could not too bad, but it could alter the release date as well a little bit, just because we wouldn't mind getting that one out in reasonable time, if not
How close are you to it?
Where are we at currently? Hang on, take a look.
You're sitting right now. Now the stretch goals are Australian dollars as well, correct?
Yeah,
they are. Yeah.
Well, it's a big jump. What we're talking.
We're well on the way. Is the yeah. For whatever reason, talking to you guys has caused us to spike. You're good luck.
Huzzah!
You're getting the good juju.
Yeah, that's right. So we're only
41,100.
we're only about less than 9,000 Australian dollars away from that Wii U goal, and we also have an interim stretch goal, which is additional quests, which we really want to put in there because some of them I think will have a blast doing them. One of them's kind of a strange bee focused city that would be really
Interesting.
Cool.
The bees.
Yeah.
Will Nicolas Cage run around screaming?
No, please.
Yeah.
Not the bees.
We're going to the deadline anyway. And like our goal through the whole thing is really just to keep the communication up with everyone as well. So the whole way through development, like once we know sort of what's going to happen, we'll be keeping everyone.
Yeah, our intent
updated.
is certainly not to do a Kickstarter where everything's really visible like it is now, and then just disappear into the night, and then eventually come back and say, "Hey guys, remember this?" I think we'll try and surface what we're working on as we're working on it. Although we're not obviously not so much that, and not at this pace, and not so much that people by the time they get the game go, "Hey, we've seen everything. What are you guys doing? Stop,
Spoiling everything."
Yeah, everything's been spoiled. But yeah, we'll keep everyone notified on how we're going. And I think it should be a really interesting rest of development anyway, because everything's so efficient, and in terms of the way we build the assets and code it, and it comes together fast, and it's really interesting to watch. So
Right.
hopefully people follow along.
I don't think that'll be a problem. And whenever we finish here, I will make sure to call up Mr. Miyamoto himself on Skype and say, "Hey, you have the extra money. You could just donate yourself and make the Wii U go happen."
Give us a shout out.
Yeah, because I have his personal Skype right here, of course. Elijah, is there anything that you can think of that you wanted to ask?
I was. Will there be any kind of New Game Plus mode? I realize that's kind of an extraneous thing. It requires a lot of more balancing and reconfiguring, especially if you want to really surprise your fans. But I was wondering if that was even in consideration.
It is a consideration, yeah.
Yeah,
William maybe talk about.
Yeah, we haven't really sketched out the details of it. And I guess we probably don't want to give away too much about it anyway. But it's something along those lines, something that allows you to revisit the world after completing it, sort of, I guess, with a fresh set of sort of challenges and maybe, I guess, a sort of fresh look at the world as well. That's definitely something that we're keen on including.
Yeah, if we do include it, it will be more than just additional health for enemies and less health for you. So once we work that out, I think then we would really like to implement it.
We're pretty keen to make it meaningful.
Yeah, it just has to be meaningful. That's exactly right.
Okay. Another question that I have: you are based in South Australia. Are there any particular difficulties you think, or any sort of unique disadvantages, advantages, or is there any sort of major differences that you have over some teams here in the U.S. or elsewhere in the world, besides obviously your cultural backgrounds and stuff? But is there anything else in particular?
Yeah, we have great coffee. We just have amazing coffee here. I don't know why, but it came from Italy, but for whatever reason, we just nail it. Seriously, brilliant lattes. We have flat whites, which is apparently birthed from Australia, which is the Australian creation, but you can get it in some places in the States now. It's awesome. It's all espresso, so no filtered, some cold drip. Look, you can't go wrong. It's just so, and look, great cafes to serve that coffee as well, I should say. I had this dish the other day. It was like a truffled mushrooms with poached eggs on
Sounds
toast,
intense.
and it was amazing.
Huh.
It was, yeah. It was incredible. It was like the best mushroom. It's a little off topic, but it was
it
like
though?
the best mushroom.
I don't know. He probably was some sort of insect design inspired by these mushrooms.
Maybe it could be. Look, there's a lot of fungi in the game, so there you go. Direct reference. But yeah, when you look, that obviously helps a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. That's
Yeah, means it's a great place to develop games at least.
Well, lots of coffee, you'll be ingesting a lot of that.
Yeah, well, not too much, but at least it's good quality when you do have.
Is there any particular character in the game that you guys are really endeared to besides the Hollow Knight, mini boss, an NPC?
Yeah, I like this dung defender that we just announced yesterday. He's
The
he
Dung
looks
Defender?
He's cool. I haven't animated him yet, but he looks like he's going to be a blast. I think he's going to roll his little, he's going to have a cool little animation of rolling his big dung balls up and then throwing dung balls. I have never animated anyone throwing a dung ball before, so
I think that's a
there's
gaming
for
first.
everything.
That is a gaming first.
Yeah. William, do you have a favourite?
Yeah, oh man, I think my favorite is still Zote, who's like the rubbish version of the Hollow Knight. Something about him I really like. And maybe I'm slightly attached to him because he's one of the characters that I got to design. But I don't know, it's just his whole design concept is just to be like a crap version of the Hollow Knight and go around moaning and complaining the whole time. And I don't know, we're sort of already thinking of a lot of sort of cruel things we can do to him.
Yeah, so in terms of unique gameplay features, we have Zote, and I don't think other games have that. So that's got to count for something.
So is Zote an enemy, or is he playable?
Well, he's
Curious.
annoying, but he's not really an enemy.
He's not really much of impressive enough to be called an enemy.
No, he probably liked to be called an enemy or a rival at least.
He thinks he's Vegeta, but really he's like Yamcha or something. Yamcha at the end of the series. That's a Dragon Ball Z reference, by the way.
I haven't seen this, so I don't know what he's referring to.
I haven't either.
I just know the names, that's all. I'm a failed otaku. I never watched DBZ.
All right, well, usually at the end of our interviews, we like to let the developers ask us and or our audience one question. So, anything you guys would like to ask?
Whoa, on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe when you look at Hollow Knight, what do you if you have been looking at Hollow Knight, if you are excited, what about it is it that does interest you or does excite you, or if you have sort of come back to us, I guess what things personally for you are the things that have kind of got you interested in the world? Yeah, that's the sort of thing we really love to hear, and everyone sort of gives different answers and stuff. Like someone talks about the gameplay or the world, or even just one specific character they saw.
But yeah, I think in finding that out, we can really it allows us to focus when we're developing on the things that are meaningful for the players.
Yeah.
What about you, Elijah? You want to take that?
Well, my response is actually not going to be that helpful at pinning things down like they were saying. My response is yes. I looked at it, I was like, yes. Yes.
That's also a good answer.
It's like, yes, you have fluid gameplay. It's not just this ridiculously slow-paced thing. It looks beautiful and distinctive, and I've actually been practicing some drawings in a Tim Burton-ish style, so when I saw, it's like the Hollow Knight's got a very similar sort of face to some of the characters I've done, just without the mouth and nose, so it was like, oh wow, that's cool. So even before I saw just, oh my gosh, I want to play this game, it was like, oh, that's cute, that's neat. And it just, yes. Caleb?
Well, first thing, when I first saw it announced, I just opened the quick start and you see the image of Hollow Knight, and there was something about him, the way he's designed with this head and the little pincer kind of things on top was really striking. And then the art caught me, but something that interests me, besides the whole exploring this world of insects, which in and of itself is kind of ill-represented in games. I mean, nature is a pretty terrible, vicious place. I think that's a great place for games, but I like you have this juxtaposition of this natural, earthy, insect-like stuff, and then you have the things like the lamppost and the benches and this human technology. And it reminds me of the scene of The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia when Lucy, she walks out in the snowfield, and then there's that lamppost right there.
Yep.
It's sort of that feel. It's something familiar, but it's also something very otherworldly and different at the same time. I mean, you want to see more, but at the same time, you're a little hesitant because you're not sure what's out there. It's that mystery, that sense of mystery.
Cool. Yeah, that balance I think is important for us. Of like, there's this elegant suggestion of culture in that Victorian sort of architecture and things like the lampposts. So it's not completely an alien world, but as you venture further out into the dark, you do start to lose those remnants of civilization. And hopefully players think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Hornet just looks really, really cool.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, we really, actually,
I was about to say, I was surprised that wasn't your favourite character.
yeah, well, she's close. I just think that
edged out by Dung Defender.
Edged out is exactly right. I
How
actually
often
think
do you get to make a dung beetle? I mean, come on.
Exactly.
I don't know. He's so round. He just looks. He's wonderfully. Anyway, you're right. The Hornet character, we're really into her as well. I think she still exists, and she exists in the game in a fairly large context anyway. But look, if there's still the potential that she could become a playable character, if we smash through our stretch goals. So there you go. There's not.
I saw I saw that stretch goal. I didn't know that's who you were hinting to, though. That's okay.
This is who we're hinting to. Well, yeah, like we didn't want to say it too explicitly, so it could be a bit of a surprise. You look closely, she's there, and she